we're defending democracy because we recognize that the minute that you give it up and you say that it's okay for Wisconsin to be gerrymandered so badly that even though 80% of the people in Wisconsin want gun safety laws, they can't have it. And they can't have rights to abortion, even though, a significant majority of people in Wisconsin want it. That once you let a minority start to impose their will on a majority, which is what you're seeing in Wisconsin and in Tennessee and in other states as well, Florida and Texas would both be, they're both deep purple states, but again, they are also gerrymandered and they've got all kinds of voter suppression in place. Once you do that, you have lost rights for everybody. And the thing I always look at and the comparison I always make is we had this in America, and people like me know we had this in America. We had it in the American South, to some degree in other states as well, but we had it in the American South from about 1877 to 1965. And in those years, when the Democratic Party in that case really ran those states, what that meant was, of course, those states were economic backwaters because nobody wanted to invest in a state where the law depended on who you knew rather than on something that was even-handed, and where your life was not worth anything unless you were one of the right people. And that was the case not only for the African Americans who bore the brunt so heavily of the Jim Crow laws and the Mexican Americans who bore the brunt of the Juan Crow laws and the indigenous Americans who lost so much, and the women who were sexually available because nobody was going to turn in somebody's son if he was connected to the governor, for example. But what that meant was that a very small group of people held all the power. And if you weren't one of those people, your kid was not friendly with the governor's son, the cops could turn on you as well. There was no real protection of the law. Certainly if you were white and male, your chances were better, but they still weren't perfect. And we've seen it, and we know what it looks like. And what it looks like is a world in which a cop could put out the eyes of a veteran and a jury would say, black guy, we don't care. Or a woman could be raped walking home from church and the guys could confess. And the sheriff would say, they're nice boys, we're not going to go after them. And this is why people like me get so upset when law enforcement takes matters into their own hands, or the judicial system refuses to prosecute cases because they're giving special treatment to somebody they worked with, for example, in the case of the murdered jogger in, I think it was in Georgia. Because we recognize that once we lose the rule of law, which is the heart of democracy, we are all targets. And that is why democracy matters so much to me, because once we're protected by the law, once we are all equal before the law, then we really do have the right to determine our own lives. And that, to me, is the noblest sentiment of humanity, that we get the right to control our lives. And we cannot do that unless we are protected by the law and unless we have the right to elect the people who make our laws and who enforce our laws. And that, or in control of hiring the people who enforce our laws. And that's the world that is on the line right now in this moment in America. And I have to say, I'm really encouraged by how many people are starting to understand that.